and welcome back to another episode of Come Over for Dinner. I'm Bess Hawthorne, and I'm so excited you're joining me today. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. Her name is Christy Steele, and she lives in eastern North Carolina in a city called New Bern. She has been married for about 20 years. She and her husband, Jesse, have 4 children who range in age from 7 to 17. She homeschools all 4. And she is joining me today to talk a lot about hospitality, especially some of the things she does within her church. One thing we're going to talk about is the Bible Reading Challenge kickoff that she hosts, as well as some Titus 2 taco nights that she does with ladies in her church, and whatever else we decide we want to talk about. Welcome, Christy.
Thank you, Bess. I'm so excited to be here.
I am excited you could join me. Tell me a little bit more about yourself. I did mention you have 4 children. Jump in and tell us anything I missed.
Okay. Well, like you said, this year, my husband and I will celebrate our 20-year anniversary. So that is just, it feels like the blink of an eye. Some days it feels like it's been forever, but then other days you think, wow, honestly, 20 years is not that much. Hopefully that's just like the first third. So we're excited about that. As you said, we have 4 children, ages 7 to 17. So we're entering the visiting college phase and getting your first job and first internship phase. And so that has just been an especially exciting season for us. And also just enjoying having older kids. I loved my little ones, and there's a lot I miss about those little years, but at the same time there is just such a sweetness that comes from having older children because they're helpful, but not just because they're helpful, but because they start to just really love life and appreciate you and one another in a really special way, especially as it relates to food. So that has been really sweet.
Yes, especially as a mom, when you're making meals 3 times a day and snacks, you want them to appreciate food and let you expand your repertoire, so to speak.
Yes.
If you try something new, you don't want them to spit it immediately out like they do when they're toddlers.
Yes, and that's just
sometimes.
That's just one of those things with us having such a large gap between our kids. We didn't really plan it that way, but that's what the Lord had for us. So it felt like we were in that. Like somebody was a toddler who didn't like anything for like 15 years or something, it felt like. And so now that they're all older and they all love to eat, it just blesses my soul every day when I make dinner and they're like, Mom, this is so good. I'm like, who are you? And what have you done with my children? But I'm so glad.
Right. That's wonderful. A lot of the hospitality that you've mentioned to me before this podcast has to do with your church and church family. So tell me a little bit about the church you attend, how long you've been there, the size of the church, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so my husband and I have had a really unique experience. We got married, he graduated, we both went to school in Raleigh, and which is about 2 hours from here. And when he graduated, the only job he was offered was in New Bern. So to New Bern we came. He was ahead of me in school, so we ended up getting married in between the semesters of my senior year. And so it took us a little while to find a church. We were kind of back and forth between here and Raleigh at the time. But when we finally found it, we knew immediately, this is it. And at the time, there were only about 5 families. It was very small. We met in an art store because one of the families owned an art store. And so we met in their little classroom space. And just from the moment we got there, we just knew this is it. We had been thinking, where are the people that being a Christian affects every part of their life? Like not just what they do on Sunday, but absolutely everything. And when the first time we went, we were like, here they are. There are only 5 of them, but here they are.
We found them.
And so
it was 5 people or 5 families?
5 families or so at that time. And
okay.
And so we were very young. We'd been married about 6 months at that time. So we were both 22, and now we're 41. So we have been there 18 years, almost it'll be 19 this summer, and just realizing, wow, we have spent more time really kind of growing up in this church than we spent growing up in our houses, because now that we're getting to 19, that's longer than we spent with our parents. And it has just been an incredible privilege, and we are so thankful for the saints at our church.
Tell me about the early days, how you were able to get to know those families.
Yeah, well, at the time, it did not always seem that easy because we were the youngest by quite a bit. Our pastor and his wife were in their early 30s or so, and there's a big difference between 22 and early 30s. And there was another, quote, young family that was also in their early 30s. They had 5 children at the time. And so those were the young people that we hung out with. But it was such an incredible privilege to be able to just really get to know the older families as well, the older couples. And so, in those early days, the women's Bible study was all the women. So it was me, as a 22-year-old, all the way up to a couple of ladies that were senior citizens. And so it just was a real privilege to learn early the value of walking alongside saints in all seasons of life. And
Mhm.
then our pastor and his wife pretty early on started inviting us over for dinner. So for years, we went to their house every night. Or I'm sorry, not every night, every Wednesday night. And then as the years went on, we started hosting, we'd kind of go back and forth. And so that was really our introduction to hospitality. After both families added several children, we realized, okay, it's time for this season to come to an end. And then, and not that we hadn't been during that time, but it just was a season to realize, like, okay, we can take what we've learned here and just start serving others. So it's just been wonderful.
That is wonderful. To have that regular hospitality on the calendar, it makes you grow your muscles, but it also makes it in some ways easier because you can anticipate every single week the same thing. You can put some recipes in place
Mhm.
that just are on repeat. I don't know how your pastor's wife did it, but it could be that you say every month we rotate. I have
Mhm.
4 recipes. And if you get like that, it becomes easier
Yes, because
where it's not something you feel apprehensive about all the time.
yes, coming into marriage, I barely knew how to cook. I mean, box mac and cheese was a staple and probably one of like the 4 things I knew how to make. So really having somebody just kind of take me in and teach me. I can remember the other mom, I would go over to her, the other young mom, I would go over to her house and just kind of sit and spend the day while she homeschooled her children. And I can remember her saying, "So how do you, she was doing her meal plan and she said, "So how do you do your meal plan?" And I was like, "What's a meal plan?"
What? What? Let me copy yours down. I don't
Yeah.
know what you're talking about.
And now I look back on that and that seems so ridiculous. I'm like, how did we even eat if I had no plan? But just some really simple things like that taught me so much as a young wife and eventually as a young mom were just so beneficial.
Sometimes it takes being around those older people who have done it, been there, walked that road, have so much wisdom about things to actually just introduce you to things you never grew up with or never learned. I remember being at a friend's house. It was actually their parents' house. And across the street, we were just in the yard playing with kids, and somehow we just noticed and happened to talk about the neighbor kind of catty corner across the street. The car would leave and come back, leave and come back. It's just
Mhm.
constant going throughout the day. And somehow we commented on it, and they were saying that I think they leave every day to go pick up food.
Mm.
Like every single day, it
Mhm.
seems like they always go out and get lunch, and then they
Mhm.
come back, and they always go out and go figure out what's for dinner. And maybe it was fast food, or maybe they're just going to pick up a little something at the grocery store. I don't know. I remember thinking of that and thinking, that is wild. I cannot imagine not having a plan in place where I
Right.
have, say, groceries for the week and it's a new day every day. And every
Right.
day I'm having to figure out, how do I feed myself and my kids? It
Yes.
just would be way too expensive to go through a drive through all the time, as well as unhealthy.
Yes.
But also, if you're just going to a grocery store, the amount of time. So
Yes.
we learn as we go, and hopefully this family learned at some point how to menu plan.
Yes. Another thing that's really unique about our church and always has been true is we live very close to several military bases. And so for many years, at least half of our church was made up of military families. So there's a lot of turnover. And it is both wonderful and also heartbreaking because nearly for many years it felt like everybody we met, you're kind of already on a clock. As soon as you meet them, you're asking, okay, how long have you been here? Oh, you just came. Okay, so we've got 3 years. If we don't meet them until later in their time here, as soon as you meet them, oh gosh, we've only got 6 months to get to know you. But it has also been so good because we really just feel like this is where the Lord has us, to just be here and to be a stable, loving influence on these families that can be so far away from home, and husbands are deployed, or I mean, there can just be all kinds of, even if they're not deployed, they're often away for training. And so it has been just a really good work in our own lives to try to minister to these families. And we've gotten to meet so many wonderful people and have learned so much along the way.
That's a wonderful testimony, because I would imagine in that circumstance, it would be easy to take the approach of, well, it doesn't really matter. They're moving anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put the time into getting to know these people or put the time into trying to create a friendship because they're going to be gone soon. So taking the approach you're talking about of it being a ministry and just wanting to encourage these people and offer them hospitality when they are far away from home, probably in lonely circumstances, especially like you said, if somebody's deployed and somebody's left behind,
Mm-hmm.
that would be tough.
Yeah. And I will say that is truly just the Lord's work in my heart, because the first time it happened, we had 3 families that we were very close to who left all around a few months of each other. And I can just remember thinking, I'm not doing this again. This hurts too much. It is just too hard. I'm just not going to be friends with Marines. And then immediately was just convicted about how selfish that was. And so just realized, okay, that's not an option. Yes, Lord, I will obey. And then over the years, that has just been such a huge blessing to know. I mean, if we had really done that, if we had said, never mind, this is too much, I mean, we would have missed dozens of families that have been huge influences in our lives. And so I am so thankful for the Lord's conviction there and just his kindness to allow us to stay here and to sustain us to keep going.
Yeah. And really, when we think about biblical hospitality, we aren't looking at just inviting our friends over.
Yes.
Biblical hospitality, so many stories are about welcoming the stranger in.
Yes.
Welcome the stranger. And we have that at Logos. I probably mentioned that before on here. One of the assembly sayings at Logos, they have different sayings where the teacher or the administrator says a word and then the kids finish.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is welcome, and the kids respond, the stranger. And oftentimes we talk about that when we're talking about a new student coming in.
Mm-hmm.
And which happens, of course, every year at the beginning of the year, sometimes in the middle of the year. And it's so easy to focus on who you know, who you're familiar with, comfortable with, and not want to have to take the time.
Right.
With
Yes.
the person who it takes extra effort and time. That can be true as a kid, can be true as an adult, like you're talking about. So it's so important to recognize that biblically God does want us to welcome the stranger. It's not about us being comfortable and us being like, this is our favorite thing to do.
Yes. Well, and like you said, it is so important that we look at hospitality as not just having your friends over and having a good time, but seeking out people in different seasons of life, people that are older than you, people that are younger than you, people that just may be different from you. Because if we don't do that, not only is it creating division, or it can, in the church where it's like, oh, well, all the young singles just hang out with the young singles, or all the senior citizens only hang out with the citizens. But it really keeps both parties from the joy and blessing of getting to know one another and getting to walk alongside one another in life.
Absolutely. Well, tell me a little bit more about some of the specific events that you have hosted in the past or currently host. I mean, I know it's a continuing thing. Especially, let's talk first about the Bible reading kickoff or Bible reading challenge kickoff, which could happen 2 different times. I don't know if you host it twice, but one is a summer kickoff. For those of you who have not heard of the Bible reading challenge, it's a reading through the Bible program. It's a Bible reading program where you read the full Bible, Old Testament and New Testament, in the course of a school year. And then you read the New Testament during the summertime. And that's the plan. And in there, of course, in the summertime, I believe there's some Psalms and Proverbs. I'm not 100% sure about that. But it's a really great plan. There's lots of apps that support it. So you can do audio if you're having a real busy day and you need to have it playing while you're starting the dishes or cooking breakfast. I always start in the morning while I'm getting ready for school. And so for me, I often do audio, although I do sit and read too. People have different preferences on that. Some people love the quiet time early in the morning where they sit and read. I've tried it late at night and I just can't. I'm way too tired. Well, and this is wrong. I'm falling asleep reading the Bible here.
In my life, there have been seasons, we've probably been doing the Bible reading challenge for maybe 6 years now. Both my husband, my oldest daughter, and me. Now the second daughter is on board. And there have been some years where I can say I pretty much read from my Bible, almost everything. And then there have been some where it's like, I really listened for that whole year. My goal for
Mhm.
myself this summer is to get back into sitting down and reading it. The summer's a good time to attempt that because the readings are a little bit shorter. But I am so thankful just for the emphasis on just just come to the table today. Come and eat. If you view the word like food, just come and eat today. And I really appreciate that all of the excuses that you can come up with, they have answers to, like you're never behind if you're reading today.
Just jump in. If you
Yes,
have missed all of Ezekiel, jump in and start on Daniel.
that's right. Just jump in. That's a great one. Oftentimes people will say, well, it just feels so lazy to listen instead of read. And I think you have to realize throughout the history of the church, most people were illiterate. So if they heard the word, it was because someone
A
read it
very
to
good
you.
point.
So, and you can't let perfection be the enemy of progress. Isn't it more lazy when you have a device in your pocket at all times that can read you the word of God? Isn't it more lazy not to push play?
Yeah,
Especially if the alternative is, I'm just not going to get to it today. So I
right.
appreciate that it has helped me get over the first time I attempted the summer challenge. I think I made it 2 days and I quit. So I was definitely one of those people that had never been successful before in a Bible reading plan. But the adage, you're not behind if you're reading today, to just jump in has made a tremendous influence or just a tremendous impact in my life and the life of my family and our church. So after my husband and I were pretty
Absolutely.
well on board, we talked with our elders about, could this be something we attempt to do as a church? And they've given us their blessing to do that. So we try and just, tell everybody we can. And that's kind of how we got into hosting the kickoff parties, which we've done, I'm sure we've done at the beginning of the summer and then also at the beginning of September sometimes. It usually starts around a holiday like Memorial Day or Labor Day. So you've got a nice long weekend in there in most cases where people are pretty free. And so if you let them know early enough, so when May 1st rolls around, I will send an email to the church saying, mark your calendars now. We're going to have a summer BRC kickoff. It'll probably be on Memorial Day or sometime that weekend. So mark your calendars now. And people love to get together. They love to go to a cookout. They love to have fun, but they are the word. And so just encouraging, let's all do this together is a great way to get people on board.
Absolutely. It's encouraging, but it also offers some accountability, which
Hmm.
I love doing it with friends. I don't always. I've done it since they've started. It's a repeat every year.
Hmm.
Again, you can jump in wherever you are. If you have missed weeks, you can just jump in, and it can be sitting down reading, like you've mentioned. But they're apps. You can go and see what the assignment is. They do have paper you can print off if you like a piece of paper and do check marks. I love the app because you just press the button to say you've done the reading, so you can read and then check the boxes, or you can listen and it checks it automatically as it plays through each chapter. My favorite app that I've found, which again, if you look on the website, I'll have to put a link to it because I can't remember exactly the name of the website, but it does tell all of the apps that it supports
Hmm.
or that support the Bible reading challenge. The favorite one I have found is the YouVersion app,
Hmm.
YouVersion Bible app, and you can invite friends to join you.
Hmm.
And so if you do that, you can all see who's on the plan and who's reading, and it
Yeah.
kind of gives you some accountability if
Yes.
everybody has a check mark for that day and you don't.
Yes.
But the last box at the end, you can make comments to each other
Okay.
if you wanted to. So you could say something encouraging, or you could ask a question, or what did you think about this? And occasionally we've done that before, have like a group discussion.
Hmm.
My favorite thing about it this year is that my youngest son, he's 18, I invited him to my plan
Hmm.
and he accepted. And at some point I said, well, hey, are you reading? Because there were no check marks. It's like, well, I actually I'm not really keeping up with that one, but I'm doing another plan. It's the same plan, but it's with my friends.
Uh-huh.
I didn't realize it, but a group of kids from school his age
Hmm.
had done a plan together.
Uh-huh.
And so when he's doing the reading, he's actually checking it off on that plan. And he had meant to fill in the boxes on
Hmm.
my plan. I'm like, it's okay. Don't worry about
Yeah.
it. Just as long as you're doing it. But it keeps him accountable because he realizes if he's falling behind, all of his buddies are seeing that he's not reading.
Yeah. And there's such encouragement and fun that really comes, especially as you encounter things that you're like, I don't think I've ever read this before. And you can text a friend and say, did you ever notice this? I mean, there's some wild things in there. I mean, at the end of Mark, where there's a naked guy running through, you're like, wait a minute, what?
What?
I've been
Have I
reading.
read this before?
Yeah, I've been reading the Bible for years and I never came across that, or at least I didn't remember
Yeah.
that I did. So, I mean,
Right.
there are lots of things like that that just come up and you're like, whoa, I had no idea. And they're still happening despite the fact that I've been doing this
Hmm.
particular plan for years. So,
For years. Yes, you
um,
just never absorb it all or learn everything that God has for you to learn, which is why he says, do it continually. Hide my word in your
yes,
heart so that you may not sin against me. And just that encouragement to continually have it in our minds and hearts so that we are transformed by it, because we can go a whole lifetime and not learn all of the things, all of the treasures that are
yes,
there.
yes.
It is interesting that you said something new stands out. I have read the Bible so many times throughout my life. I did grow up as a Christian. I was very blessed with Christian parents. And literally, and I was reading Esther with my second grade class, and all of a sudden it struck me. I'm like, have I read this before? I have to have known this. I know this. But it just struck me that when Haman put out the decree on the Jews, and the king said, oh, yeah, that's fine with me. He signed it. And just before, when I had read, what struck me was, just how really wicked the king was, that this noble's coming before him and saying, I just want to destroy this whole population because they don't believe like I do. And, they have different views than we do. Yeah, just kill them all. But what struck me when I was reading it out loud to them, it mentions it a couple of times, was that he was bribing the king. He was giving him money.
Right.
It talks about how much money he was promising to give him and to fill his treasuries with.
Uh-huh.
And I believe it was 10,000 talents of silver. And so I Googled that with the kids. So that, I'm like, okay, how much is 10,000 talents of silver today? And I got some mixed answers, but it was way, way up there. And so then we started talking about, was this going to actually come up? Haman was wealthy, I'm sure, being a noble. Was this going to come out of his pocket? They're like, yeah. Like, well, if you go and slaughter a whole people, it says the decree was like kill, destroy, annihilate. It wasn't even just kill. It was kill, destroy, annihilate. But if you do that, what's left behind? Their gold, their riches, their jewels, it wasn't just kill, but we're going to steal take everything they have. And that would be used. I'm sure he'd pad his own pocket, but that would be used to put in the coffers as well, the king's treasuries. Anyway, it's just really interesting because when you read, sometimes something just really stands out that didn't the year before or the last time you read it. And it's just a whole new perspective thinking that through.
Yes.
I don't know why. Anyway.
Yes.
Well, people are like, you're crazy. I've always thought that.
As you're describing it, I'm like, I need to keep my eyes peeled for that next time I read Esther, because I don't think I realized that either.
Well, it just gave me a new perspective on the king. It was more like, okay, he's being bribed here. He's saying yes, partly for his, pride. Yeah, maybe I don't want these Jews around either. But part of it was like, hey, I'm getting a lot of money out of this, a lot.
Yeah.
So anyway, interesting. Okay,
Yes.
Moving past that little rabbit trail. Join the VRC. Join the Bible Reading Challenge. If you haven't already, you can start anytime. You do not have to start at the beginning of the whatever, beginning of the summer or beginning of the school year. You can jump in anytime. So tell us a little bit about your party, your kickoff.
So like I said before, I send an Evite, so it's pretty simple for that. Usually my husband and I will provide sort of the main course. So sometimes we might do hot dogs and hamburgers. We've done pulled pork. I have a Hawaiian chicken that I love to do. So it just kind of depends on whatever I'm in the mood for that year. And we provide drinks also, and we'll ask guests to bring sides and desserts. And we just invite our whole church. And the first year that we did it, we had, I think, around maybe 30 people come, and I thought, this is great, this is wonderful. And while we're there, we'll eat, fellowship, kids play, that sort of thing, and then we'll all sit down together. We ask everybody to bring their Bibles. We sit down together and read Psalm 119. So we'll just kind of go around and each person reads one section, and then we'll talk about the Bible Reading Challenge, kind of some of the things that you and I have just talked about reasons why it's a great plan, and just encouraging people to join us. And we may sing and pray, and then, just play some more. And then The last year when we did it, we had just under 100 people. So it has grown steadily every year. This year, I expect, because our church is also growing, so I expect that we'll probably have over 100, and that just thrills me. And so it's so neat to see. Hospitality in all forms is so much like a muscle. And if you had told me when I was that newly married 22-year-old that I'd be having 100 people over at my house and I wouldn't really be stressed about it, I'd just be thrilled, I would have thought, you're nuts. Because I can remember in those early days, just having one family over was like, how am I going to feed all these people? What am I going to do? Where am I going to put them? But the more you exercise that muscle, the stronger it gets. And it's easy to just take the next step. So maybe it's inviting two families instead of just one, and inviting a bigger group and that sort of thing. So it really is just so fun.
Yes. And you accumulate either the know-how or the materials that you
Mhm.
need. For you, I'm assuming that maybe you have some folding chairs stocked away and some extra tables, or at least you know where to borrow them.
Right.
Maybe you borrow them from your church or a friend or something
Mhm.
like that. But a lot of times we can slowly build. I need some extra tablecloths. I need to have some extra napkins or whatever it is. For me, when I moved here, somehow over the course of raising children, I have lost all my silverware. I couldn't even make a complete set for
Yeah.
8 people,
Uh-huh.
like the knife, the fork,
Right.
the spoon. I don't know what happened, how they randomly disappeared, got left somewhere, if they were taken in school lunches or got thrown in a trash can. Who even knows? It's like we never had problems with the dryer. You know how the socks disappear?
Right.
Our problem was the disappearing silverware.
It's a common affliction.
Yes. So when we moved here, I thought, if I'm going to have anybody over, this is embarrassing. I went to Costco and bought 2 boxes of
Mhm.
whatever.
Yeah.
So now I'm ready. I'm not going to have to pull out plastic silverware. But things like that, you
Mhm.
realize, okay, I need more silverware or whatever it is, like you're talking about. You just can slowly build after
Mhm.
having one family. It's like, oh, we need a bib for the baby that comes over. Or,
Mhm.
now we have 2 families and, oh, this is missing. It
Yes.
makes it a little bit easier
Yes.
when you start off small.
And when you get into the rhythm of it, you learn to look for things. Like, for example, Hobby Lobby, it seems like in every season they have these black and white sort of checkered tablecloths, like a buffalo print. That's what they call it, I think. Well, then at the end of every season, they go on clearance. And so I can't tell you how many times I've picked up a couple for $2.50, and they're cloth tablecloths. And now I probably have 10 or 12 of them. And so, yeah, like you're saying, I borrowed tables from our church. We have a good number of chairs. We have some other people that we can borrow from as well. And in the beginning, I never had tablecloths, and that was fine. No one cared. But now that I've got them, I'm able to put them out, and it really just makes it look more fun and more festive, and I just enjoy that.
Yes. What other activities? You said you do the Psalm 119 reading.
Mhm.
What other activities do? You have games set up in your yard. I'm guessing with 100 people, they're not all in your house. You're going to do it on a day where you can be outside.
Yes, it is mostly outside. Although sometimes, moms with babies may go inside or toddlers may go inside to play. And so that's fine. So I tried to make sure that the house is accessible for people that need it, especially if it's hot. Some of the older people might go inside. And the trampoline, we have a, swing set that can handle several kids. Our house is actually really unique in that we have a pond in our backyard that is actually very close to the house. So we'll put out some fishing poles, and it's actually a great place to fish because since we rarely do it and it is private property, the fish are very dumb. And so they just will bite and bite and bite. And so it's a great place for little kids to fish because practically as soon as you put the thing in, you've caught a fish. Sometimes you catch a turtle. That's not the best, but hopefully there are enough dads there that they can figure out what to do about that. And then, like you're saying, just slowly accumulating things. We have a giant Jenga set that I'll put out. May put out a bubble machine, some soccer goals. We have a basketball goal. I'll ask my neighbor, hey, can I borrow your cornhole? And so I put out chalk and things like that. So whatever we can find. And so that way people can really kind of spread out, be in the front yard, the backyard, the side yard, behind the pond. And it doesn't feel super crowded, even if it's a big crowd.
Oh, what a fun event to look forward to. Before we move forward, a big thank you to the sponsors for supporting today's episode. Are you searching for hands-on activities to help your kids explore the practical side of science? Look no further than your kitchen. Inquisicook blends food science and culinary arts into an engaging program that puts delicious food on the family table. Let Inquisicook do the teaching with lesson videos, reliable recipes, and assessment tools that put students on track for success. Their online platform is easy to navigate and optimized for mobile, so the learning experience can move from the classroom to the kitchen without a hitch. Inquisicook turns curious students into intuitive cooks, not just recipe followers. Say goodbye to the tyranny of the ingredients list and say hello to utilizing what's in season, what's on sale, or what's in the fridge. Visit inquisicook.com to view sample lessons, then check out the recipe gallery to see just how crave-worthy science can be. Today's culture shifts like sand, but New St. Andrews College is established on Christ, the immovable rock. The college is a premier institution that forges evangelical leaders who don't fear or hate the world. Guided by God's Word, equipped with the genius of classical liberal arts and God-honoring wisdom, with a faculty dedicated to academic rigor and to God's kingdom, New St. Andrews College offers an education that frees people. To find out more, visit nsa.edu. Tell me a little bit more about your Titus 2 taco nights for the women in your church.
Yeah, so that is an idea. Honestly, I don't even really remember how it came to me, but I think it might have actually been a little bit inspired by the What Have You ladies and their podcast. It took me years to realize this, but when they do their tip at the end, I realized like that is just such a way to encourage one another in the practical aspects of whether it's homemaking or parenting or just, I mean, life in general. And so the very first one I ever did, the theme was loving your husband. So we kind of each time will look at a different aspect of the Titus 2 address to women. And so I will do chicken taco meat. I have a recipe that is super easy in the crock pot, but it's so good. And I'll just send out, like a sign up genius or something. And each person only needs to sign up for really like one thing. So, I mean, sour cream, cheese, salsa, and if you've got people that have more time or love doing, they can make a homemade salsa and that's delightful. But if you've got people that are busy or, just in different seasons of life, there is no shame in showing up with a bag of shredded cheese because we need that. So, tortillas, chips, tomatoes, onions, beans, dessert if they want to do that. And so it's really an easy event for people to attend where they're not thinking, gosh, I've got to make some fancy thing or whatever. And it's not too hard for me either. So we have a good amount of space inside our house that I can either have tables already set up or like in our playroom, I can kind of convert that to an extra little space and put a table in there. And so the ladies are able to be seated for dinner. And then afterwards we'll have some discussion and I'll tell them ahead of time, bring a tip, just bring one tip about how you love your husband. And it's wonderful. Like, one person talked about how she prepares breakfast sandwiches at the beginning of the week for him to have all throughout the week before he goes to work. And one of the older ladies, it was so sweet, talked about how she cuts his hair every Saturday so that he'll have a fresh cut for church. There are just so many different avenues that you can take with that. Maybe it's about prioritizing what's important to him, even if that thing might not be important to you. I mean, in my own life, it took me years to realize what a blessing it is to my husband if I stay on top of the laundry. And it was like, once I realized that, I thought, gosh, he has been mentioning that for so long. And I never quite got how important it was to him, but that's a great opportunity for me to realize, okay, that's important to him and that's a way I can love him and serve him. And so everybody, like I said, will bring a tip and share, and it's a great time for people to get to know each other and for us to just really encourage one another in practical ways. So we've also done loving your children or working at home. And the one for working at home was actually really neat because it was a good mix of sometimes it was like scheduling type things. Here's how I clean it. I have found that it's helpful to do this on Monday and this on Tuesday and this on Wednesday. So as I discussed earlier with never knowing how to make a meal plan as a young wife, some people need that encouragement. Some of it is encouragement to just think about your own heart's orientation to your work, to work joyfully and unto the Lord. It's like, I got this vacuum mop combo thing that's so cool and has been such a blessing to our family. So there are just lots of different things that we can learn from one another, whether it's about a product that you love or just a scripture maybe that has really helped you to serve your family well. So they're just great times for fellowship and also just learning and encouragement.
That sounds like a wonderful time.
It's been really fun. One of my tips was the glory of a stick vacuum, just something, a little stick vacuum that even the kids can run after dinner. I personally think sweeping is the worst. I feel like it's so
Yeah.
ineffective and you can
Yes.
sometimes, it feels like make more of a mess, but just a nice little stick vacuum. And a lot of them these days, the stick part actually comes out. And so it kind of doubles as a dustbuster almost. But I had my
Yeah.
son using that thing when he was like 2 or 3 years old. I would take the stick out and then
It's
it's
amazing.
perfectly his size. And oh my gosh, that is like a huge sanity saver for me, especially when you have little kids where after every meal, the floor really does need to be cleaned because there are just
Yeah.
crumbs everywhere.
I just got one that's cordless and like one of those little stick vacuums,
Hmm.
and it lays pretty much flat so you can go under couches. You don't have to move tables, couches. It's amazing. And I'm like, where has this been all my life? I
Yes.
needed this years ago. And the only reason I bought one was an emergency because my vacuum died. And I'm like,
Hmm.
I have to have one here literally tomorrow. So I just did some random fast search on Amazon and looked up some reviews and was like, let's just buy this one. Okay, well, I won't go into all that. You've talked a little bit about food. Tell me a favorite menu that you choose to serve when people are coming over for dinner.
I have to say, this was difficult, mostly because some of our favorites really have come from this podcast. I feel like I have learned so much from listening to the podcast. So I just want to give a shout out to the Indonesian chicken that Becca Merkel did. It might have even been your very first episode. If not, it was not long after. That is a huge hit and is wonderful. The Tuscan chicken stew that was also pretty early on is fantastic. And I mean, just in the winter is so, so good. And it's easily doubled or tripled for a huge crowd. So those are definitely two of our favorites. But I tried to think about, okay, what's something that hasn't been mentioned on here? And there's one that we love and everybody who has had it loves, and it's called Bang Bang Chicken. What makes it, quote, Bang Bang Chicken is the Bang Bang sauce, which you make with a combination of mayonnaise, sweet chili sauce, sriracha. There's some honey in there, and it makes this really delicious sauce. But even if you have people that are just they're not into condiments, that's not their thing, the chicken itself comes together very quickly and easily and is really flavorful. I have one of my children is just not much of a sauce person, and despite that, it's like everybody's favorite meal. So it's chicken breasts that you quickly marinate. You don't have to do it ahead of time in just a little bit of olive oil. And then I think it's salt, pepper, paprika, and garlic powder. So it comes together really easily. The recipe that I found suggests doing it on skewers. Well, I'm probably getting ahead of myself in the time saver section, but I don't do it on skewers because that just takes extra time and then you have to take it off of the skewer to eat it. So sometimes I might do the whole chicken breast, other times I might cut it in half. Other times I'll do it in bite-sized pieces, but just not put them on the skewers to save a little bit of time. And I love to serve it with coconut rice, which I also got from this podcast, and then a vegetable.
It's so fun.
You could do either a salad or we often will do steamed broccoli or sauteed green beans. And I mean, I could serve it every week and my kids would gobble it up every time.
I'm putting this on my menu plan. Speaking of menu plans, I'm doing that as soon as I get off this recording. I have to do a grocery order. I'm adding this entire menu,
There you go.
which, speaking of these recipes, you can find all of these. I can put the links to the past ones that you've talked
Mhm.
about that people have recommended, but also her new one, the Bang Bang Chicken. I will put this on my website. It's always under the index where you can find things alphabetically and by category. Or you can look under her blog post and it'll be a compilation of all of these there.
And I'll tell you, Bess, I actually keep on my phone, I keep the index open in a tab all the time so that if I'm in the grocery store and I decide, oh, you know what, I'd love to make this, I can just real quickly pull it up. I can see all the ingredients right there. So that index is my best friend.
I love hearing that. It's very inspiring. I will be honest, there are so many times that I'm just like, do I know how to cook anything at all?
Yes.
Are there any favorites?
Right.
Does my family like anything that I
Right.
cook? I don't even know how to cook.
You're right. And you'll
And then
be
I'll be inspired by some new recipe that I see on there.
yeah, and you're flipping through your own, favorite recipes and you're like, none of this sounds good.
None of
It
it
just there are
sounds good.
dozens of
Yep.
things there, but it just all feels kind of, we've already done that. So finding new
Right.
things is always fun.
It is. It's inspiring when somebody says, this is my family's favorite, or I love to serve this when we have company over. And that inspires me to try it and try something new and just pep it up a little bit. And it's always delicious.
Yeah.
Everything people recommend on here, it's a classic family favorite. And so it's not going to be terrible.
Right.
It's going to be good. Tell me about the dessert you serve with this menu.
It really depends on what time of year it is. Right now, like I said earlier, it's spring, and so we've been picking strawberries like it's our job so that we can make jam and get them in the freezer. But probably our favorite dessert of the year is to make a fresh strawberry pie. I've actually got one that's chilling right now. We're going to have it with our Sabbath dinner tonight, and the kids are so excited. It's a recipe that came to me from my friend Malia as a fresh blueberry pie. So you can do it with blueberries, you can do it with strawberries. My favorite is to do a combination of both. When you hit that really sweet, just it's only like 1 week, but when you can still pick strawberries and you can get fresh blueberries, oh, it's so good. And you bake a pie crust, the bottom crust, ahead of time, and then the berry mixture you make on the stove. So it's not like a typical, it doesn't have a top, a top crust. And you cook half of the berries with sugar and water and lemon juice and cornstarch, and you let that cool, and then you stir in the other half fresh berries. And so it just has this like vibrant taste of both the more like jam type pie filling, but also the burst of freshness from the berries that aren't cooked, and it's just so good.
Oh, that sounds amazing. All of these recommendations for berries made me think of a dessert that I made recently that I would put berries on top of. Have you ever heard of a posset?
No.
I think it's a British dessert.
Okay.
I helped with the new St. Andrews event, and the lady who was doing the catering she may have changed it. It may have been lemon, or it may have been something different like orange or something. I can't remember, but the original recipe was lemon posset, which I'd never even heard of. But when I made it, it was familiar.
Okay.
It's so, so simple. It's just a unique, fun dessert that is the easiest thing you'll ever make. It literally is just lemons, cream, a little bit of sugar, and salt. That's it. And you can add some vanilla extract. What the lemon juice does to the cream is it makes it a yogurt texture. It kind of brings it together and makes it's thin at first. And you think, what is this? And then it sets and it becomes this yogurt texture. She froze hers.
Okay.
And it was a very interesting, fun kind of frozen yogurt dessert. I liked that. It was good. But I also liked eating it just as it was. But it reminded me, have you ever had the Haagen-Dazs? They don't even call it yogurt. Haagen-Dazs has this teeny little cup. It's way too expensive. It's the most delicious thing you've ever tasted. It's like eating ice cream that's not frozen. But they call it a cultured cream, and it's in the refrigerated section.
Okay.
I don't even know where. If I go to a grocery store that has it, they don't all have it. But if I go, I have to figure out where it is, maybe even ask an employee because I don't even know where it is. It's not really with the yogurts. Sometimes it's somewhere. It's in the dairy, but it's called cultured cream. They have vanilla and coffee and strawberry and blueberry, probably lemon. Anyway, this lemon posset reminded me of that. So I made it recently. It's way too sugary for me. I mean, which you could cut back on the sugar. That's one way. But I kind of thought, this is ruined. And so I had my husband taste it, and I'm like, it's just way too sweet. And he had the idea, just mix some whole milk plain yogurt with it. Like just add yogurt.
Right.
And I did that, and it was the most amazing thing ever. It was delicious.
Wow.
So I made the posset, perfect, little too sweet, little too strong, whole yogurt mixed with it, plain. So delicious, topped with berries. It is the best summer dessert.
That sounds
amazing. And it's almost instant to make.
Oh, nice. Even better.
You have one more dessert recommendation. Tell us about the new bars you've just started baking.
So, fresh berries are not always an option. So another thing that I have really come to love lately is a recipe I got from Sally's Baking Addiction for soft M&M bars. And I mean, everybody loves a chocolate chip cookie or an M&M cookie, but sometimes even just taking the time to dish out separate cookies, it does add a few minutes. So this, you kind of make a cookie batter and then you just spread it into a 9 by 13 dish, and they are just so good. And I'll bring them, to potlucks at church, and people are so excited. And they also freeze very well. So if you need to make something ahead of time, you can do that, stick it in the freezer and pull it back out. I've started like at Christmas time, I made them with red and green M&Ms. Well, and then I had too many of them left over, so I separated them. And then at Valentine's, I made them with the red M&Ms that were left over. And at St. Patrick's Day, I made them with the green M&Ms that had been left over. So you can make it kind of festive, depending on the season. But they're quick and just fantastic.
That's a great recommendation. And I love that the different colors can make it perfect for any holiday.
Yes.
You mentioned some shortcuts already on how you do your chicken. Do you have anything else you would add to that you would make ahead of time?
You could definitely make the bang bang sauce ahead of time. Although I will say that I can get this. I have learned I start my rice in the Instant Pot and get that going, and then I'll preheat my oven at the same time. While that's getting started, I will go ahead and chop up the chicken and put the spices and the olive oil on there and get that into the oven. While that's starting to cook, I can make the bang bang sauce, and I can even do the vegetable, and all of it is done in about 40 minutes. So that is, in my book, a dinner that is delicious and also fairly quick. That's a real win. So there certainly are some things that you could do ahead of time, but also if you're just in a time crunch, you can still get it done quickly, and it is not stressful to make.
Nice. What is your best prep tip when you're thinking of having people over?
Well, I think the best tip I could say is to just do it. I don't know if this counts as a prep tip, but when I was young, I had people over for pizza more than I care to admit. And eventually my husband said, I think we should cook them a real meal. And so that was just the next natural step. And so I would just say my best tip is wherever you are, whether it's that you're young and you've got a small place and you don't know where you're going to put people, or just do the next right thing. And then just as you exercise that muscle, you'll get better and better. So that may not be the
Just
best
jump in
either.
and do it.
Yeah,
No, it's a great tip, because even when you're starting doing pizza and then figuring out all the other things, like the cleaning and the timing, and just you're nervous about it, having pizza makes it really easy. And then growing from there. It's a great idea.
Yes.
Instead of just saying, well, I can't. I just can't.
Yes.
Where do you get inspiration if you are kind of like, oh, I don't know what I want to cook, which it sounds like you have quite a few really good recipes in your back pocket. If you don't, do you have anywhere that you look?
I find a lot of things on Instagram and Pinterest. I think just the ladies in your church or friends, are a great resource, because you can always say, oh, who brought that delicious thing, and get a recipe that way. One lady on Instagram that I've discovered recently, her handle is Brunch with Babs. She's an older grandma who kind of accidentally got famous during COVID, and she's just delightful. She gives a lot of tips on home care and homekeeping as well as cooking, and she just came out with a new cookbook that I decided to go ahead and order, and I'm so glad I did. I feel like when you look through a cookbook, usually you'll find maybe 2-3 recipes that you're like, oh yeah, that sounds really perfect. Well, there were at least a dozen that I was like, I know that everybody in my family will love this, and that's hard to find. So that new cookbook, I think it's called Every Day with Babs, and I love the way that she has it set up. It's like Mondays are sheet pan dinners. Tuesdays, she calls it 2 for Tuesday, so it's things you'll double. On Wednesday, it's one pot Wednesday. Thursday is Thrifty Thursday. Friday is Fry Yay. So they're really like fun, kid-friendly meals. She's got slow cooker Saturdays and then Sunday suppers. If I just need something quick, then go to the sheet pan meals on Mondays. If gosh, I really need something that I can do in the crock pot this weekend, go to that section. So the way that she has it set up is really neat. And I've already made 5 things from it, and they've all been great.
That's a wonderful recommendation. I have not heard of that. I will definitely look that one up and put a link to it.
Yes. Well, and I learned your trick about checking out cookbooks from the library, and that has been wonderful because there may be somebody that you've seen online and you don't really quite know, is it going to be good or is it not? So check it out from the library and see. And if there are a ton in there that you love, then it's worth buying. And if not, you haven't lost anything.
Absolutely. And you can always check Sam's or Costco for cookbooks because they
Mm-hmm.
rotate them. If it has to be a real popular one that they know they're going to sell a lot of, but I've
Mm-hmm.
found the Pioneer Woman cookbooks there
Mm-hmm.
and other ones that I know I do want, and they're a lot cheaper price than if you went, say, to the local bookstore, just walked in to say a book's a million. It's
Right.
going to be
Mm-hmm.
premium price. Of course, now everybody shops online, so I know you can find kind of price check online and see who
Yeah.
has the best deal. And sometimes they run deals when it first comes out,
Mm-hmm.
discounts. But checking it out from the library is a fabulous idea. In fact, when you mentioned that, I kind of had that thought in my head of like, I may look at it, have the library request it this summer before
Yeah.
I buy it.
Yes,
I
do
was
it.
actually thinking that right before you said it. That's very fun. What is your best advice for showing warm hospitality to those coming into your home? How do you make them feel welcome?
I think number one, like I said before, just do it. Just get over whatever your excuse is about why you can't and just do it. And then two, I would say be yourself. One thing that I love about this podcast is you'll have some ladies who say, I really don't like to have everything ready when people get here. I kind of like to give them a job in the kitchen. And then you have other people that say, and I would be one of these, I really like to have everything ready so that when they get there, I'm not stressed in the kitchen. And I don't think one of those is right or wrong. So I would say work with your own personality, strengths, weaknesses, and that sort of thing, and just do it. Just get over whatever is the hang up and just invite somebody over.
Right. You're creating the vibe in your home. When they walk in the door, they can feel whatever it is that you have set, whatever the
Yes.
tone is, they can feel it, even if you're thinking you're hiding it. Like say you're all stressed out. They're going to pick up on that. It's not going to be fun. So figuring out how to make yourself less that way.
Right.
Great
Right.
advice.
Another tip that I should have mentioned earlier, one thing that I have found to be helpful over the years is that if you need help from your kids or your husband, to make a list of exactly what it is that you need. Because otherwise, especially as things get frenzied, I'll find myself saying, I need you to unload the dishwasher. And then 5 seconds later, I'm like, go switch that laundry. Now set the table. And they're like, Mom, I can only do one thing at a time. And I'm like, you're right. But if I don't say it while I'm thinking it, then I worry about forgetting. So it's good to just make a list. And that way, especially if you've got a whole army of helpers, they can come in and just see, okay, what's the next thing on the list? I'll take that and do that. That has really helped with just communication and moving things along more smoothly. So I'm not getting frustrated and they're not getting frustrated. So, sometimes just something as simple as making a list can really help.
That's a fabulous idea because oftentimes we do start to sound like a drill sergeant, and
Hmm.
it creates a tone with your kids that's just not enjoy. They're not looking forward to company
Right.
coming over when it's this very stressful. Mom is barking all these orders, and you start barking more and more of them. Like you said, just because you're trying to, okay, at the last hour, let's say,
Hmm.
there's lots of things coming together, trying to finish this, trying to finish that, checking on this food, checking on this dish. It is a time of a lot of work,
Hmm.
especially when you have kids helping you. Everybody's busy. So being able to have just a checklist they can come independently look at and keep
Hmm.
working on without you having to nag or say something
Right.
over and over and over is a very good idea.
Yes. And I have been so surprised and blessed by how eager my children are to help as they get older. In the early days when they're so young, it can be really hard because it just feels like every time you clean something up, they're playing with toys there again. And you can be tempted to think, what are you doing? What they're doing is they're living in their home, so that's okay.
Right.
And so because sometimes it was hard when they were young, I was always afraid they're just going to hate this. They're going to hate it when people come over, but they really don't. They have that feeling of a job well done when they've helped to work hard, especially for something as big as the Bible reading challenge. That list is long of things that need to be done, for our kickoff party, but they love helping, and that is a huge blessing.
Yes, I think if kids can take ownership, if you allow them to take ownership, then they are going to have pride in it. And it means not going behind them and fixing it, air quotes, fixing it. Like
Hmm.
if they set the silverware or they do the napkins or whatever job you give them, And obviously you can instruct them and ask them, okay, well, this is where the fork goes, etc. But if you don't go behind them and fix them, if they actually have ownership of it, when the guests comment or compliment, it is directed to the child and not you. And that is a nice feeling. And it gives them kind of that idea of like, oh, someone noticed my hard work and I want to do it again, like whether it's creating name tags or folding the napkins a certain way or whatever. When somebody comments like, I just love my name tag. Some moms have mentioned their kids do the names and then the artwork on the name tags. Or whatever task you give them, it just gives them value in that whole participating in the event.
Yes.
Gives them buy-in. What is your must-have kitchen item and where can we find it?
Well, I have a couple that I want to mention, but before I say that, I want to say something that I recently have learned, and I feel so silly that it never occurred to me earlier. I was at a friend's house not that long ago, and she was preparing dinner for her family and mine, so it was a large group, and I noticed that as she kept going into her drawer in their kitchen, she had probably like 5 pairs of kitchen shears in there, and I thought, wow, it never occurred to me to buy more than one. We had one, and if it was dirty, then you were just in trouble if you needed it. And so just that realization of, okay, we were young and just starting out, and at that season of your life, just to get one of everything takes a lot of work. But now we're quite a bit further down the road, and so it's actually for us right now, it's not going to break the bank to buy an extra measuring cup so that you're not having to wash the one that you have over and over again.
Right.
And so that actually leads me into one of my items that I loved. I decided to get another set of measuring spoons. And I don't know how I found these, but the ones that I ended up finding are a magnetic set. So they all kind of nest together with magnets. And they also, each one is a different color, or, it has like a label on it that's a different color. And so over time I've learned, okay, if I'm looking for my 1 teaspoon, then it's the blue one. So I can just grab that really quickly. And that is just a huge time saver. I used to love the ones that I had that were all connected, but now that I have these that can be separated, I love that because let's say if I have to measure vanilla with my 1 teaspoon, it's not getting all over all the other ones. And so then you're like, now I need a 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but I have to go wash and dry this whole thing because there's vanilla all over it. So I really love those, the magnetic spoons.
Is
those
yours
have been
the
a huge
two-sided
hit.
one where there's 2 sides to the measuring spoon?
Yes, and that is so helpful because the one that's elongated can fit inside your spices. But then even if you do need to, say, measure vanilla and salt with the same one, if the one side has the vanilla on it, you can just use the other side and the salt is not going to get all sticky to it.
Okay, well, great minds think alike because I think I own this set and I think I actually just ordered another set. I don't know if it's the same brand. One I ordered for a friend and one for a son. You could get a 2-pack for cheaper than the 1-pack, but you can also buy them in single sets, and you can buy different color schemes and all of that. It's so much fun. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, maybe this is where I got the idea. Maybe somebody had already recommended them, and that's how I found it. But
I don't think so.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't remember this being on the podcast. This happened to be my second set. Like you're talking about, for years, I went with 1 set of measuring spoons and measuring cups. And weirdly, I'd had that same revelation. Why do I not have more? Why am I always having to, rinse and dry if I need the teaspoon again? And we received, it was a present through my husband's work, some holiday gift or something, but it was a set of measuring cups and measuring spoons. And I remember what else was with it because that was the part that stood out the most. Like, I have a second set. Why haven't I done this already? And the measuring spoons were magnetic.
Yes.
And I love them so much. I just love them so much.
I noticed that they do have different color schemes, but I would recommend ones that have like kind of a rainbow set because being able, like I said, to know, okay, the purple one, that's my 1/2 teaspoon. So I can just grab it really quickly is just so convenient instead of having to kind of shuffle through them all to find the right one.
Right. That's the one I bought for my son and my friend was the rainbow set because, like you say, when you look at, say, the all different purples or there is a variety of blues, I mean, maybe you go for that, but I wanted one where it could be, can you grab the green one, the one that says 1/2 teaspoon, or the blue one is, each one is a distinct color.
Yeah,
I
and
like
they're
that
not
better.
expensive either. I think the whole set is maybe $7 or $8. So it,
Yes.
you know,
So
you
cheap.
can probably find room in your budget for that pretty easily.
Yes. Yep, for sure.
The other product that I would recommend is a candy thermometer that is also a spatula. So it is the neatest thing. It has a long, like you might use as like a meat thermometer, but it goes inside. It ends up looking like this. It goes inside a spatula, and so you can both measure the temperature and also make sure that the thing that you're cooking isn't sticking to the bottom with just this one tool. It's not the sort of thing that I use. I don't use it every day, but whenever I am doing something where you've got to get out a candy thermometer, it's just now one thing instead of I'm trying to balance the candy thermometer and make sure it's not on the bottom of the pot because then it's not getting an accurate read. It is a very convenient little tool.
Okay, this is something I have never heard ever seen. So I am so fascinated to look this up and order it.
Yes.
I think I can find room
Yes.
in my budget for this because
Yes.
what you're saying is so true. If you have a candy thermometer out clipped to the side, you have to make sure it's, in the right spot. And then you're trying to stir at the same time and you keep banging the thermometer and you're
hmm
trying to hold the thermometer where it doesn't fall off and stir at the same time. So sounds like it is the best of both worlds.
It
I
is.
love it.
And again, it's maybe $15 or so. So it's not going to break the bank. And so the few times a year that I need it, it is helpful. It's helpful that it's there. The last thing I want to mention is a product called, well, product it sounds like a strong word, but they're called table topics. They're these sets of cards that have just questions that you can ask. My kids love doing them almost every night at dinner, and they're great for just those nights where everybody's kind of tired, it's been a long day, and you want to have a good family time around the table, but sometimes your brain just feels fried. So they'll say, can we do table topics, and we'll get them out. But I've also found them to be really helpful when we have people over for dinner who are maybe a little bit more quiet by nature, or if you're having some kind of a ladies gathering where maybe conversation might be a little awkward at the beginning because people don't know each other very well. They are just such a great way. I have found that even people who tend to be kind of quiet by nature, if you ask them a good thought-provoking question, they will answer, and it really does start a conversation. So they have all different kinds of themes. There's family and couples, and we even have one for grandparents. We're probably on like our fourth set of them. I'm honestly worried that they're going to run out of questions before our family gets done with them because we just love them so much.
That's a great recommendation. Also, something I haven't heard about. I have heard
Okay.
recommended just topical cards, but I don't think this particular one. And if you love them
hmm
so much, that's a great recommendation to say, hey, these are actually good questions.
And I've given them as gifts to several friends, for birthdays. And without fail, they come back and are like, our family just loves these. It has been so good, transforming dinner time. And so cannot recommend them highly enough. Every now and again, there's a question that's kind of a dud, because maybe it's not aiming at the right age group that you have. Like one question is, what's your best childhood memory? Well, my kids are like, we're still in childhood, so they don't
We're
necessarily know.
children, Mom.
Yes. Or there was one I think that was like, what would you do to stop global warming? So every now and again,
Right.
there's
Yeah,
some that
skip
are
that
maybe,
one.
yeah, maybe a little bit less relevant, but I would say
The kids are like, what?
99% of them, yeah, 99% of
Yeah.
them,
That all
even,
ages can jump in on and have a
yes,
comment.
yes, yes. So highly recommend those.
That would make hospitality even easier.
Yes. Because sometimes you do go through phases where you're like, I have asked all the questions I can think of, and we're
And this
getting a
person is
little.
giving one word answers.
Yes, yes. So it's good for a good aid for those kinds of times.
Yes, for sure. Well, thank you so much for joining me today, Christy. I appreciate all of your tips and hearing all about the ways you do hospitality, especially the encouragement that you gave us to maybe start small, do something, jump in, do hospitality, including a Bible reading challenge kickoff. But even more important than that, we invite you just to join the Bible reading challenge and jump in the
Yes,
Word wherever it is. Wherever the challenge is, you just jump in and get started.
absolutely.
Until next time, bye for now. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend and don't forget to subscribe and leave a review to help more people find the show. Thank you for your time.